I get amazingly nervous when people see my models for the first time, and I mean amazingly nervous. Do they like it? Do they not like it? You know, what's going through their mind? Think, oh gee, you could have done that better. That looks a little lame, or are they really happy with it? So there's this whole process of emotions. Quite often I get the opportunity to sit back and just be a fly on the wall. The best thing about children is there's something they don't like or think isn't cool, they will come out and tell you straight away. So that's pretty neat too.
It's fun because it's just a kooky idea of just having like bricks with studs and stuff.
Well, you can make anything you want. You can build lots of interesting and cool things.
Also, it lets your imagination run wild and do whatever you want, really.
And it can be as interesting, it can be regular or out there as you want.
I'm really looking forward to the exhibition because it kind of combines my two likes, like architecture and Lego. Just to like be able to walk into the gallery and just see like really massive things made out of Lego that you just see in like books and you think, wow, that'd be really cool if I actually got to see that.
The fact that it's made out of Lego, you're inspiring children to get their big pile of Lego or the Lego at the museum or wherever it happens to be and build their own amazing stuff. All of these are standard plain old Lego bricks that everyone's got at home. So anyone can take these Lego bricks and do exactly what we've done. So my name's Ryan McNaught and I'm a Lego certified professional. I'm one of 12 people in the world licensed by the Lego company to work on interesting and amazing projects, of which I'm quite lucky to be involved with Sydney Living Museums on this one. Certainly here in Australia we've never seen anything like this before. I've never myself personally had to build 18 skyscrapers all to the same scale, all for the one exhibition before, and we've never really seen anything like this hit our shores before. So there's a few firsts for us.
I always expected that the models would end up quite blocky, that the limit on the size and shape, the limit in the colour range would create models that were quite similar despite the changes in architecture. But Ryan is able to overcome that. In fact, he uses it, it becomes an asset. He can create amazing shapes from the limited repertoire of Lego, from the limited colour. He can combine clear glass with different colour glass or Lego blocks behind it, create a whole range of colours so that each tower is very close to the original building.
So very much at the start of this process, Kieran was doing that initial front-end research. Footprints, scales, measurements in particular, important features of buildings, distinguishing features of buildings. So that was really quite important in the process.
The response from the architects, from the call out to the architects, was phenomenal. By and large, they were very, very happy to be involved. But we received a wide range of material from CAD drawings, 3D renders, photographs, and not all of them were usable. I would take this material and use it to produce a CAD drawing of the tower and then slice that CAD drawing into different sections. Each section Ryan would then print to the final Lego model scale and use that to build the model layer by layer up.
So of these 18 very different and individual buildings which we're working on, each one of them either is in an amazing location or has some unique defining factor about them. What we're trying to do is highlight the textures and the colours and the shading. I don't consider myself an artist, I consider myself a craftsman, and I consider these models to be the outcome of that craftsmanship, if you like. There's certain minimum sizes that I can work with, certain angles that I can't work with. It's very flat and square and all of that kind of stuff. So to me, that's where the craftsmanship plays the most important part, is capturing the shapes of these buildings, and some of them are just crazy shaped buildings, and being able to do that with plain Lego bricks, that's the tricky bit, and I hope that's what people appreciate. So the ultimate compliment for me is if someone says, is that made out of Lego? That's the ultimate compliment for me. They'll sit there and think, hang on a minute, is that real? Oh, and they look and they'll, oh, it is actually Lego bricks. So that's the ultimate compliment, because you know that you've managed to capture the shape of the building without giving it away.
So here's our Lego workshop. This is where all the magic happens. So we have the various colour streams that we're using, and most of these buildings are fairly monotonal. They use different colours, but it's a lot of that same colour. At the minute, Ashley, obviously on Barangaroo's being time-lapse photographed as well, so watch out for Ashley moving around at super fast motion as he's building the building. In here in the workshop, there's probably 2 to 3 million Lego bricks here in the workshop. We each have different strengths in what we build and don't build, and that even goes down to the types of Lego bricks that we use or don't use. Okay, right, so these are some of the buildings which we've finished and are ready for crating. So we've got Petronas Twin Towers, Q1 and Taipei 101, and Brisbane's Infinity's behind it. Yeah, quite a crazy amount of building in these fellas, and a lot of bricks as well. The detail level on these is pretty insane. Yeah, these are really quite special buildings. So the first one we did was Infinity Tower in Brisbane, which is quite a new building here in Australia. It's unique in that it's got an amazing pattern carved out of the balconies on one side of the building and vertical stripes on the other. And basically this building is built sideways. So all of the studs of the Lego building on one half of it are built sideways, which is a little bit unusual. And we call that technique SNOT, which sounds a bit rude, but it stands for studs not on top. So instead of the Lego brick going this way, basically the studs go this way. And that allowed us to get these vertical stripes in really quite nicely. Next building, Eureka Tower. So Melbourne's own, being a Victorian, that was neat for us. So the thing is, it's colours. It's got some amazing colours on it. It's got this really big gold block on the top of it. So we've used these Lego bricks, which were released about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, which were in a Lego anniversary set, the gold brick being part of the golden anniversary. So we've managed to hoard and find and scrounge our way through all of these gold bricks to end up having enough to be able to make the top of Eureka Tower. So, and it uses some colours which we didn't use in the other buildings as well. There's orange and reds and stuff like that. So that was kind of cool too. What is really interesting about this, and I'll talk about a technique that we use in all of the buildings, but it's very prominent here, is called selective compression. Okay, it's about making sure that the key details are captured, as opposed to making it an exact replica of what it is. Lego doesn't allow us or give us the fine detail of making it an exact replica. It's basically making it look as close to possible as we can. So Barangaroo in Sydney on the foreshore there, it's a real challenge. The real key thing with Barangaroo is not only so much the hotel, the big crazy building that comes out of it, but also its relationship with the other buildings is really quite key. They form a package together. You really need to see the whole suite. I was quite fortunate enough to be able to take a tour of the construction site to see how it's going and where it's going, and it gives a bit of a unique opportunity because I can look and see some of the issues and challenges that they've faced, and some of these shapes are just as difficult to build in real life as they are in Lego brick land. So we're quite lucky with that, me being able to get a bit of a bird's eye view, which was kind of neat, and pretend I was a real tradesman for a day. So the Gold Coast is famous for its Q1 massive skyscraper. It's a really unique shape as well, and it has an amazing spire and quite a unique top to it, if you like. It's probably one of the better looking buildings of the models that we've finished. That's not to denigrate any of the others that we've done, but the colour scheme really pops. It's a really amazing model and it looks really, really great. So Marina Bay Sands is probably tying for one of the most complex buildings that we've had to build. Each of the 3 buildings obviously are unique. They do several things. They curve like a banana from the inside to the out. They get smaller to thicker, and they grow wider as well. Then put the banana-shaped boat on the top, which join the buildings together. So if you look at it at a couple of angles, with the front of the boat facing towards you, you can see those curves really start to happen and a reflection off the glass and the light, and you get a bit of the swimming pool and stuff on the top. And I think that involved everyone here in the workshop. Ash certainly worked on the towers and the rest. I did the joining buildings. Mitch did a bit of the joining buildings, and then we had the boat on the top, which I sorted out. So that was a whole team effort, and we each worked to our own strengths and weaknesses in that building. So yeah, that was kind of cool. Now the Petronas Twin Towers, with its unique shape to it, its multifaceted star point, with that very Islamic feel about the building, made it even more challenging to sew. Yeah, so I can show you. Yeah, here's our prototype bin. So this is a good example of one of the top sections of the building. This is not even the main base. So this gives you an idea of the type of shape which we're trying to achieve. Now the really cool thing about this building, if you look really close, and I wonder if people pick it, we've actually built the whole model upside down. So all of the studs which you're facing here are actually facing downwards. And the reason that we've done that is the main glass component here is we're able to get a better texture and finish around the glass than what it is if it's going upwards. It's got a much bigger lip at the bottom than what it does at the top. So we've got a much better looking solution to have the smaller lip on the bottom underneath, almost hidden, which is the aim, which was the look we were aiming for. Okay, so moving on from there, I guess we can probably head into Hong Kong now. So this building, when I first sat down and planned, I thought, oh, great, something square for a change. Hooray, you know, finally I can start working in normal brickland. I was pretty sorely mistaken. About 1/3 of the building in the middle, we were able to use that standard technique. The rest of them, we had to build walls and basically hinge them and slowly slant them in and then do slivers that go in the cutouts and stuff like that. So it was a heck of a lot more complex than what I first anticipated. The other thing which I didn't really appreciate at the time was just how big this building is. It's an enormous building with a lot of floors and a lot of floor real estate. So it's a real monster of a building. When we looked and first sat down at these buildings, we looked at roughly what colours buildings they are. I've got very few choices available to me in terms of Lego glass. Clear, a trans brownie blackie type colour and a trans bluey colour. And that's it. That's my 3 choices, which doesn't give me a lot. So what we do is we put different coloured bricks behind them, behind that clear, to give the illusion of another colour. And we've used quite a rare colour for most Lego fans. It's called earth blue or dark blue, which is a real deep blue, which we've put behind the blue glass. When you put some light and stuff on it, it really reflects and lights up and shines. It's a treat. It's a treat. Probably one of my favourite actual real life buildings is Taipei 101. It's very unusual in that the surrounding buildings around it, particularly years ago, were fairly low rise. And this amazing giant thing protrudes out of nowhere and really dwarfs the entire cities. And the real trick about Taipei 101 is its shapes. At the base of the building's a pyramid-esque type shape, if you like, for lack of a better term, which forms the base for 8 noodle boxes or noodle box shapes which sit on top of it with some quite neat or intricate details about it. So Shanghai, which is currently the world's 2nd tallest building behind Burj Khalifa in Dubai, its shape is crazy. It's 2 buildings in one. There's a whole series, if you think of tin cans on top of each other, that slowly change shape and get smaller as they go up and are also slightly offset to each other as well. The building changes as it moves up. And then there's an outer skin of the glass which goes around it. And now inside between that outer skin and those tin cans, every 25 or 30 floors or so, there's a band which is solid, which joins the glass to the building, and it has trees on it and greenery and its own little sort of ecosystem. So we have to replicate all of those components and parts to it. So the other real challenge to this building is it's not finished. The real object isn't finished yet. So we're working off drawings and plans and diagrams and artist images and 3D renders and stuff like that, which are fantastic and they give us an idea of what it's going to look like, but they don't capture what the real thing exactly is going to be. So for us, it's about getting as many different images and stuff to work from as we possibly can, and we've been a little bit challenged and hampered with that. It's quite a unique and very challenging building to do, but the technique that we've used for this, we've pioneered in building Tokyo Skytree, which is the tallest building in the show, and kind of is a craziness in itself. So it starts as a triangle and finishes as a circle. So both of those shapes Lego doesn't like. Lego doesn't like triangles and Lego doesn't like circles. So to move from one to the other and slowly change the shape in between of each of those is quite difficult. So Lego bricks come in different dimensions, 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. Of course, our geometry doesn't necessarily mean we need that length. For example, like in Tokyo Skytree, I would have loved for Lego to have had a 2.5 long plate, or a 3.5, or a 4, 4.5, or a 5.5, even a plain old 5. Lego don't make a 5 long plate. So there's all these insane numbers of plates coming around. Now for me to solve and to do those things, for example, say to make a 4.5 long plate, I'll take a 3 and this great little thing here called the jumper plate, which is actually puts a stud right in the middle of those two. So if I put those two together, that gives me 3 4.5 lengths in stud. And so throughout Tokyo Skytree, and if you look really closely, you'll see it quite a lot, particularly as it gets more round, you'll start to see that I've had to use plates that are this length. So basically it stays together because I can put a plate at either end and slowly twist around and around and around. And the geometry around that was really, really crazy. And as, of course, the circle got smaller and smaller as the tower went up, I had to start shrinking these and making these smaller and smaller. So the swear jar here in the factory got a little bit full a couple of those days, but that's okay, nothing wrong with that, as the particular building got smaller and smaller. So that technique is the same which we're going to use both in Barangaroo and also Shanghai. Today marks a very important day. We're starting the Shanghai Tower, which we will be building on an incredibly tight timeline. The real building took about 4 to 5 years to put together. We're going to give it a go in about 3.5 weeks, give or take. So yeah, quite a challenge. To give you an idea of just how tall it is, we've got some plans here which we've been working on, and what we basically do is we slice the building into these 80 sections of this style of build, which is made up of some panels, a tile above and Lego bricks below. These don't represent a story of a building. A person's roughly about yay high, but this is the key technique which will repeat 80 times to give the height of the building. The really important part for us in any of these buildings which are doing, but particularly Shanghai, is mimicking the real features of the building and making sure that they represent exactly what the building is. So for example, say doing some research, we can learn about the building how every 7 sections, which is roughly 20 to 30 stories, there's a mezzanine level where we've incorporated trees and plant life. We've had to do these beautiful spruce trees throughout the model, so we've incorporated quite a lot of those. And at the very top of the model as well is 45 vertical wind turbines, obviously part of the building's energy efficiency and the rest, so we've incorporated these wind turbines on the top of the building as well. Unfortunately, these are roughly 3 metres in the air, so people are going to be going really well to see these, but we have incorporated them into the building as well. So these are DUPLO bricks, which we're using on the inner core of this building, and we have actually used it in probably 2/3 of the buildings for the whole exhibition. So basically we use these as they're so strong and really click and hold together well. What a lot of people don't realise or know, that normal Lego bricks can interact quite well with DUPLO bricks. So a standard Lego brick can basically click right on top of a DUPLO brick, and again it's really quite strong and sturdy. So on the top of all of these various modules is we have plain old Lego going with DUPLO, and we basically, the underside of the next section comes down and clicks on and gives that building its ability to lock down, and a solid or a tubular piece of steel comes up the inside of this building. The Lego doesn't interact or connect with the steel in any way. What it allows it to do is to hold its shape. So if someone was to accidentally fall on top of the building, or the building won't topple over, the steel core on the inside keeps that together. This is section 2 of the building. You really get a good view in here of these side struts which hold the outer exterior of the building, just like the real thing. That's what gives this building strength and stability, the outside of that. Whereas this is the real office building on the inside with all of the various floors and stuff. And obviously all the trees and living area or space around the building, which gives it its unique shape, sort of goes around the outside. And again, this shape changes based on where the building's at and is shrinking in size. At the minute, this particular part of the building's undergoing quite a drastic shrinking of the size of the building, so it's really changing shape quite dramatically, and you can see that by some of these notches in the building as the building size changes substantially. So yeah, this is quite a unique view. You certainly won't get to see this when the building's together. Probably if we were to look it out, the amount of bricks that we'll use in Shanghai would be sort of, you know, maybe 50 times the average child's Lego collection in one building, which is pretty unique. Each day there's a lot of bricks to lay. Just like a bricklayer that works in normal house bricks, he's got to lay so many bricks per hour, so many bricks per day. We have to do exactly the same thing, and this is really pushing it to our limit of exactly how many we can lay a day. It's going to mean for some long days and some sore fingers at the end for sure. So we're almost near the end of some 2,000 man hours, 18 buildings, 400,000 Lego bricks, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of mathematics, a lot of headaches, but we're almost there, almost at the end. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting feeling. We've lived and breathed these buildings for some months now, trying to understand them and faithfully recreate where the architects are going with these buildings. They all have unique personalities and unique traits, so learning and understanding those buildings has been both challenging and rewarding as well. Yeah, it's good to learn. It's good to learn.
So is this the last brick on the top?
Last brick.
So it's been a couple of years since we first built Towers of Tomorrow in Lego Bricks, where we did all the Australian and Asian tours. Now we're revisiting and we're adding a whole heap from North America, as well as one very prominent building from the Middle East. So when we last were putting these Towers of Tomorrow together, we were in our old workshop, and we're now in a much larger new workshop, which actually helps us a lot in the creation of these towers, particularly because all these buildings are really quite large and tall and very diverse and different to the previous ones. And one of the interesting tools which we do use is here you can see all the buildings that we've added on for this part of the exhibition in terms of size, which ones have gotten taller and taller as the buildings go up. And Burj Khalifa really stands out on its own. It's a mile taller than all of the other buildings. So the first building which I chose to do out of this new North American set of Towers of Tomorrow is the Grand Wilshire, which is in Los Angeles, California. And its claim to fame is it's the tallest building west of the Mississippi, okay? So it's a really unusual building. Los Angeles has a lot of rules and regulations about its skyscrapers. It's in an earthquake fault, for example's sake, so there's a lot of rules around the building itself. The real cool part about this building, like a lot of the Asian buildings, and unlike every other North American building is, it has some crazy slopes and curves in it. A lot of North American buildings are very straight and square and have quite defined angles on them, whereas this has a beautiful side curve, has a very gradual slope at the side, and has some recessed parts and things like that. And then the base and podium of the building has this amazing, almost like a river, piece of glass separating the main building with its atrium at the base. So there's some real unique challenges which are not easy in Lego at all with this building. All right, so the big granddaddy of this show is of course Burj Khalifa, which is the current world's tallest building. And to give you a bit of an idea, it's 4.1 meters high, and our previous tallest building is under 3, which is the Shanghai Tower. So we're talking a significant bit larger and quite a difficult shape to build. So the building itself, being so high, offers a lot of challenges. It has a really big footprint compared to some of the other buildings. It's basically a triangle, okay? So there's 3 wings to the building, all set equidistant to each other. And they have a very, I guess, Arabic taste to the building. The shapes itself are very like onion dome type pattern to the building. So it's really quite an unusual shape. So then there's the physical height of the whole thing. And there's quite a structure inside the building. Obviously we're going up 4 meters high, so we have to be very careful about, making sure it's safe and secure. So here's the bottom 2 sections of Burj. We've broken it into 5 because it's so high. So we have the first section and then the second section. And you can really see the staggers, how the building starts to stagger and lose its width as it gets higher and higher on its way up. But
But it's basically the same shape all the way throughout the building as it shrinks and goes up. So here you can see these are the plans that we're working off with the buildings itself, and you can see Burj Khalifa. And this clearly indicates the different tiers that we're working to, which drop off to each other. And at the minute, I'm up to tier 11 here. I'm about 2/3 of the way in, and the building's starting to change shape really quite dramatically. So yeah, and of course we need very tall ladders or a cherry picker to put the thing together. Yeah, it's quite a process, and it's a very difficult building to use, and it's by far and away the most hours out of any of the buildings that we've built here in the add-on to the exhibition. But yeah, I've always wanted to do it. You know, it's the world's tallest building, so why wouldn't you want to do it? So yeah, it's kind of neat. So now we're in New York, and so New York has this crazy thing about such physical little real estate available. Most footprints of buildings in New York are tiny because obviously the real estate prices are so expensive. So this particular building is on the edge of Central Park, probably New York's most expensive real estate. And this building is purely an apartment building and houses 80 apartments. However, it's just short of the tallest building in New York. It's just under the height of the World Trade Center. And what makes it so crazily unique is it's so skinny and thin. This building is scary thin and so small, and its footprint is really, really tiny. Now all of these buildings are all made to the same scale, and that's one of the cool things about the exhibition is that you can compare what they look like. So you can look at Sears Tower, for example, it's like a Willis Tower as it is now, versus what this building is. Now they're both the same height, but Willis Tower's like this fat and this building's only this fat. So yeah, really kind of unique in its outlook. It's also a very ornate building. It's kind of Art Deco without being Art Deco. Obviously it's a modern building and has modern construction techniques and the rest. So it's quite a detailed exterior to the building itself. So this is the prototype of the building. So we made a little slice so we could figure out how we're going to get the ornateness or the Art Deco-ness. And the other thing we had to do is work out the staggers. The building basically recesses up to a point at the very top. So I had to work out how that was going to happen while keeping the same detail in it. So we made a little prototype here of what that was going to look like and basically help us work out what pieces we need and how we're going to get the design and the shape happening, as well as the stagger, which is really quite important too. So it's a really unique building. It actually went together a lot quicker than what we thought because it is just simply so skinny. Once we worked out the pattern to it, yeah, we kind of knew how it went. Yeah, so this is like our little prototype piece of that building. Forever will stay in our workshop as a slice of what it's like to make some of America's most expensive real estate. It's hard to imagine what it would be like to live up the top. So still in New York City, of which we're doing quite a few buildings. So probably one of the most famous ones, and famous for a few reasons. A lot of people think it's the Empire State Building and they get really confused. It's quite iconic, but of course it's the Chrysler Building, which was made at a very similar time to the Empire State Building, but is very distinct in its look. It really is one of the sort of Art Deco masterpieces of architecture of the time, if you like, and has the crazy star formations and all sorts of bits and pieces like that. So this is probably the most ornate building out of the new towers that we're doing. Has quite a lot of detail in it and changes a lot throughout the building. There's a lot of things like winged creations and bits and pieces that stick out throughout the building. So there's quite a lot of work here that's gone into making this the unique shape that it is. And there's a lot of curves and circular stuff as well. Very iconic for the time and very recognisable part of New York City. Bit of a labour of love due to the ornate detail that's happening inside the model. So there's quite a lot of work obviously about its, you know, its fine detail, and obviously the shape changes throughout the building as well. So if you look at the main base of the floor here, you can really see that there's some quite distinct angles that are happening throughout the build. So you can see here on the inside of the Chrysler Building, you can see some of the structure that we put to make sure the building's nice and strong, and obviously to support such a tall Lego model. So you can see there's kind of like a crisscross or a honeycomb, for lack of a better term, which happens on the inside of the models. So like all of the towers which we've made, we don't use any special Lego pieces. They're all standard Lego bricks. So for example's sake, a lot of these little wedge plates, they might be the wing off a spaceship, for example's sake, or these slopes might be from the front of a car. So there's no special pieces, all standard Lego bricks, and everything's sort of comes from somewhere or another. No real cheating. We've just obviously repurposed them for different places. So that's the Chrysler Building. It's it's a great one. So apart from Burj Khalifa, the next tallest one that we've made is the CN Tower in Toronto. Now, we've had the pleasure of making this model before, so basically knew the difficulties around it. The fact that it's circular, the actual observation platforms or disc, if you like, and it's built on a tripod of 3 shaped legs, basically equidistant to each other. Burj Khalifa and this are built on the same sort of pattern. Provides a lot of strength. A triangle is a very difficult object to tip over. But its most striking and interesting part is obviously the first of the 2 observation decks, and it's got this beautiful round, almost donut-esque part to it, which is quite unique. And basically the parts that we're using to make that and stagger it around the slopes of cars, or the front of cars, bumper bars of cars if you like, and some roof tiles. And it's quite famous for its glass elevator, that when you're going up it, you get to see the whole way that you're going up the inside of the tower too. So yeah, it's a very unusual building. It's quite, when it was made in sort of the 70s, it was very sci-fi, it was very postmodern. It's like, wow, this is kind of like a UFO's landed sort of thing. So it's a bit of an unusual building, but yeah, we managed to capture it in well in Lego. There's a few crazy colours on it. It's got some red and some white and things in it, which really make it stand out as well. And it's extremely tall. So yeah, this one's just under 3 metres high, to give you a bit of an idea, and it's quite pointy at the top. From obviously what was a very important piece of Canadian infrastructure, the sheer communications tower size of it. And obviously nowadays, you know, with mobile phones and the rest, it's quite an important part of Toronto. So this was the world's tallest building for quite some time, and held the record, took over from New York, is the Willis Tower, or as it used to be known, the Sears Tower. It's a really interesting building in that it's very square and blocky, but it's really quite unusual in that it cuts back and steps back up to a point. So it's very suited to Lego building. A lot of the buildings which we make are anti-Lego and really quite difficult to do. Things which have crazy curves and shapes in them, like that one for example, whereas this one's really quite square. So it's really suitable for that. The thing about it is it has a huge surface area. The actual volume of the building itself is very significant compared to all of the others which we've made, and you can really see that in its base. It's really quite large and huge. It's also very different colour-wise. None of the other buildings, even the Asian towers and Australian towers which we've built, match this colour scheme at all. It's really quite monolithic, if you like. So this is the glass that we've used here. It's like a smoky brown glass, and we put black behind it to give it that black reflectiveness that the real building has. It's a fun building to build because it went up relatively quickly, just like it did in real life. There's no craziness to it. It's very iconic, I guess, to Chicago, given it's such a big building and was part of the world's tallest building for a long time. And the view from up the top of it is an amazing view over Lake Michigan and all of Chicago. So yeah, it's a great building to build, and I'd always wanted to build it too. So yeah. So hopefully with the addition of these North American buildings, we've managed to capture the spirit and feel of American architecture, as well as obviously Burj Khalifa too, and added that into the exhibition. It's really unusual to be able to have these very contrasting Asia-Pacific buildings with the North American buildings, and they're not often compared next to each other. So that's the real benefit of the exhibition, is it really lets you see this is what it is in North America, the same size and scale building in New York or Chicago versus what that is in Shanghai or Singapore or Hong Kong or whatever the case happens to be. So they're very contrasting to each other, and I think that shows how diverse the architecture is too.